And so we are going to let Susan share her screen, and I'm going to be quiet. And we are going to talk about HIA writing and using the rubric.
Well, Madeline, thank you so much. I can't tell you how honored I am because I think the world of you. And I just want to say, you never know, smile at people because they end up being District 2 coordinators of the Texas region and being even more fabulous. And so thank you for that compliment and for doing all you do as a faculty scholar and as the coordinator. I think you're fabulous. And I'm really happy to be back with the District 2 meeting because I am actually an honorary member of District 2. Although I came from District 4, I'm very, very proud of being an honorary member of District 2. So thank you to all District 2 people, past, present, and future, for that honor. I'm excited about it. And I know I'm here to talk about honors in action and writing Hallmark Awards. So I have a lot to talk about. I've set my timer because I know 25 minutes goes really fast and I can talk when I get going. So please, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. And I'm going to go through this. And then if we have time, answer those questions, but I'm going to give you my email address so you can ask those questions at any point. So honors in action, here are some basics for writing Hallmark Awards. The deadline to complete your project is, I was going to say December 31st, 2020. So you want to make sure as you're going through this process, whether you're at the very beginning, you're at the middle, or you're getting toward the end of your project, you want to make sure you finish by December 31st. I always get the question, what happens if we don't finish? And my answer is finish part of it at least. Do something that you have completed, certainly the research part of it, and then part of the action part of it. And then you can talk in the impact part about how and why you finished and what you learned, or why you didn't finish and what you learned from that, but finish something by December 31st, 2020. And then the Hallmark Award deadline is actually January 20th, 2021. That's so hard to say. By 5 p.m. Central Time, since we're at Central Time, it's all good, 5 p.m. for us. You have 2,600 words with the Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry. That includes an abstract of up to 300 words, and we're going to talk about that. And it includes the annotated bibliography. So the formal citations and the annotations come out of that 2,600 words. That sounds like a lot of words until you actually start writing a Hallmark Award entry for Honors in Action. And those of you who have done this before, you're going to have to edit down to 2,600 words, but that's all good. That's part of the process. And then I've listed the Hallmark Awards site here, and I'm sending this PowerPoint to Madeline so she has it and she can share it with everybody. But you advisors can go in now and you can set up your Honors in Action team and your other Hallmark Award teams and can access all the information for Hallmark Awards. So there's the URL and it is live. So we have a lot of resources, and I want to mention this because I know some chapters may be at the beginning of the process. And some maybe have not looked at a few of the resources we've got. So the Honors Program Guide, the 2020-2021 Honors Program Guide is online. I think probably a lot of you have hard copies because I know the Texas region has provided those in the past, but we also have it online at ptk.org/honors. All of these resources are located there. So you definitely want the guide because the honors study topic is a foundation of Honors in Action. So you want to get a look at the introduction to the honors study topic. And then you want the Honors in Action planning and judging rubric. It's in the Honors Program Guide, only at the 5-point level. There are some things that have more points at the highest point levels because you are Phi Theta Kappa members and you're members of District 2 and the Texas region. So I'm expecting that you never actually look at the bottom of the rubric in terms of, how could we score half a point? So it's in the guide. You've got the rubric online as well at ptk.org/honors, also at the Hallmark Awards URL as well. It's really crucial to have the Honors in Action planning and judging rubric. If you haven't looked at it yet, please download a copy, print it, give it widely to your team so that you can take a look at everything that's required of an Honors in Action project. And we're going to talk about a lot of it. And then the other thing, things I want to point out on the right-hand side, lots of things. There's an Honors in Action workbook that is at ptk.org/honors. The Honors Program Council did this. It's really cool. You can download it, you can print it, and it just follows the Honors in Action process, and you can write your notes, take them there. They have some pro tips for you. So it's a really nice piece. If you haven't taken a look at that, it might be something that will help your team as you are getting organized, especially for writing. And then we always get people who ask, can we see some winning entries? And so Civic Scholar is the one place to go. You'll see 16 winning Honors in Action projects from 2020. And it's really nice. They're very different projects. I will say that Grayson College is one of those 16 chapters that has been featured in Civic Scholar and is featured in the 2020 version with a wonderful project. And you'll just see a variety of projects. I think it's really helpful to see that. And then Research Edge, if you're not really clear about the Honors in Action process, in addition to helping you build your research skills, it will walk you through the Honors in Action process. And particularly because there's a section on APA citations. I think that's really helpful. We also have a brand new resource online, and it's it's a chapter leaders activities guide. And there is an activity in that guide that's about APA citations as well. So that's something I really urge you to take a look at. You know, the points are given for formal APA citations. A lot of chapters miss that, and they just put whatever citations they can figure out at the last minute. But the difference between the number 50 Honors in Action project last year and number 51 was 1/4 of a point. That happens so often. So do your APA citations. No need to wait. You can be doing those now. So there are 3 big parts to Honors in Action. And you want to think about these, you know, obviously when you're planning, but also when you're planning to write. Academic investigation, action, and impact. All of those things are part of the project. And in total, they're worth 100 points. But I want to point out a couple of things. Academic investigation is worth 34 points. Action is worth 33. Impact is worth 33. But one of the secrets, I think, for award-winning chapters is that the action and impact sections of the rubric include points that relate to academic investigation. So it's really crucial, and I'm going to give you some more tips, but it's really crucial that you spend time when you're writing an Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry to pay attention to academic investigation and the connection between academic investigation and action and impact, because points are awarded beyond the 34 points with that. All right, so let's talk about tips. This is sort of where I want to spend most of my time, because I really looked at, well, what are some of the really great things award-winning chapters do and that other chapters very often miss with Honors in Action. And sometimes that may be not looking at the rubric. That's why I keep saying looking at the rubric. But the number one, remember the honors study topic, which seems kind of silly, right? Because it's the foundation of Honors in Action. But one of the things that happens is that in this case, for example, the honor study topic is to the 7th generation, inheritance, and legacy. And there are 7 themes. And one of the things that happens is that chapters go to those themes and then they forget about the honor study topic. So say your chapter was working with theme 2, it's Saturday morning, I can't talk. Theme 2, natural and constructed environments. And you start getting really into that because that's what you've chosen and your team's passionate about that. And you sort of forget that you're looking at inheritance and legacy. You're not going to score as many points if judges can't see that you absolutely understand what the honor study topic is and that you understand that the theme is the lens. So you're looking at, in that case, natural and constructed environments, or at least one of those two, as it relates to inheritance and legacy to the 7th generation. And I know I've talked with the Texas region about the honor study topic, but in your writing, make sure that you make it really clear to the judges that you know the honor study topic. And that brings me to the second point, the concise but detailed abstract with the honor study topic title. Top chapters make sure that the judges know they know what the honor study topic is. And one way to do that right off the bat so that judges know you know it is to write it out in the abstract. You only have to write it one time. I know that there are 2,600 words, so you don't want to keep writing to the 7th generation inheritance and legacy, but you need to write it one time. And my recommendation is that it's right up front, that judges then expect that you have paid attention to the honor study topic, and they'll look for it in the rest of the entries, but get it there. The other thing, the abstract is not just about the action piece of honors in action. It is about those 3 major categories, the academic investigation, the action, and the impact. And so while you've only got 300 words to work with in the abstract, you want to have elements of those 3 things in the abstract, sort of guiding judges through what you did, because judges know honors in action well, but they don't know your project. And so that's an opportunity for you to let them know what they're going to be reading, which is great. All right, so then research question, don't forget it. We have resources for you if you're not sure how to do a research question. It also, there's a question about it. It needs to be upfront, and judges need to see that what your question was. Research objectives as well, and this is something that award-winning chapters do and other chapters very often forget, or they put their action objectives in the question about research objectives, hoping judges fall asleep as they read that paragraph. It doesn't work that way. They know when if you don't have research objectives. So things like how do you plan, or how did you form your honors and action team? Did you invite a research librarian to help you with identifying and analyzing academic sources? How many sources maybe will you potentially look at? Those are the kinds of things you want in your research objectives. And it doesn't have to be a huge number, but you probably should have at least 2 or 3 very clearly research objectives and get them in the right place so that judges see those. And then academic sources, this is really key. And this separates a lot of the award-winning chapters from chapters that don't quite get there. The sources have to be academic. They need to be varied in viewpoint. So, it doesn't mean that they have to be diametrically opposed, but they do need to be varied. There has to be some element of, I guess, a global look at the theme. So not all 8 sources that you use for your honors in action Hallmark award entry have to be absolutely global, but you should have some global perspectives in your 8 sources, in those 8 that you're going to write up. And clearly academic, and that means a lot of chapters start with newspaper articles or TED Talks or websites, and that's perfectly acceptable to start there, but none of them are academic sources as it relates to honors and action. So there is a place where you can write about those, but not in your 8 sources that you list those APA citations for and you list your annotations. So make sure you have academic sources. You can check with faculty members. Your advisors will know that. Faculty members, you can have some assistant coaches. The librarian can let you know that, but check and make sure the 8 that you highlight are academic sources. That's really important. You can write about the other sources in your research conclusions. Make sure as you're writing your entry, because there are a lot of points given to academic investigation, that you pay attention to the question that asks you what your research conclusions are, because you can write there about some of the other things that helped you learn more about your theme as it relates to the honor study topic. So that might be where, maybe you looked at a TED Talk that led you to sources, or you looked at a website that led you to some other sources that were academic, and you can write about those and write about what you learned. And if you take your research question, your research objectives, your academic sources, those 8 you're writing about, the annotations for those, and your research conclusions, all of that goes together in an Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry to really show the judges that you took the academic investigation seriously, that you looked at the honor study topic, you considered varied viewpoints, you looked at it as a global issue that you were looking at, and that you really paid attention to that foundation of honors in action. So you want to make sure you spend time there. You may end up spending the most time there. That may be the place you spend most of your words. That's okay, as long as you get all the other pieces here. So I've already mentioned formal APA citations, annotations. Make sure your annotations are not summaries of the journal articles or books or documentaries, whatever you're looking at. You should be writing about what was important about that source that led you to your action. So you're walking the judges through, because they really don't know what was important about what that source meant to your team. And so you want to make sure that you use it in 2 or 3 sentences. You use that to show them what was important. And that's where you also show, the varied viewpoints. And that's where you show the global theme. You can do all of that in the annotations and in the research conclusions. But make sure as you look at the rubric, as you pay attention to it, that it's asking about those things. And if you don't get those in there, you won't earn full points. It's a really important part of the rubric. So it may be that you have to edit some other things out that you'd like to put in there, but you want to write to the rubric. It's technical writing in the end. You want to just get those points as much as you can. So I've already mentioned, as you move into the action piece, there has to be a direct connection between your research and your action. And what judges look for is, and they're reading that, they've read the academic investigation part of your Hallmark Award entry. Now they look at the rubric for the action piece. And this is the first thing that's in the rubric. And they're trying to figure out, all right, if I looked at those sources and I thought about this the way the chapter thought about it, can I get to this action? So you're really making the case that this academic investigation led you to want to do this action, whether it's service or it's an awareness campaign or it's an advocacy campaign. You can do any of those things, and all of this can be done virtually, and all of the action can be done virtually as well. So don't let that stop you. You can actually, I think, reach more people in many ways when you're working virtually for the action. It's kind of an interesting thing, and I don't know that there's anything you can't do virtually, and that includes things like raising money. Phi Theta Kappa just finished its fund run and raised more than $47,000 for Golden Opportunity scholarships. That I would argue that we wouldn't have raised that money had we had a fund run in Jackson, Mississippi, for example, because you're not going to get that many people. So think about that. Don't think about it as a barrier. Think about it as a real opportunity to reach people, whether it's service or whether it's awareness or whether it's advocacy. Lots of opportunity there. You do need action and collaboration objectives. Most chapters are really good with their action objectives. And if you look at the rubric, they should be measurable. They should be things that you can achieve within a year or less. If you haven't started yet and you're just getting started, you still have time, but don't wait too long now. If you're getting finished, you want to look at that and see that there's some things you want to do with those action objectives. And don't overlook the collaboration objectives, because you want to pick collaborators on campus who are not part of your Phi Theta Kappa chapter, and you want to pick collaborators from the community. You want to pick the best people and organizations who are going to help you enhance your project. So part of having those objectives is to figure out, who are you going to look for just in general terms, because you don't know yet until you finish your research, but who's best capable of helping you guys learn, work the project, make it better than it would have been without the collaborators. There are lots of things you can think about. And don't forget the next bullet point, communication with collaborators. You can have an objective about how much you're going to communicate with them and how, again, all can be done virtually. All the invitations can be virtual. All the communications can be virtual. But you want to make sure that you have a communications plan, that these collaborators really help enhance your project, and they can collaborate for any part of the project. You can have collaborators for the academic investigation part of your project. You can also have collaborators for the action part. But think about your communication plan, what you want to achieve with them, working with you. And of course, you're going to give some detail about your action. and take a look at the rubric and what the judges are actually looking at. And you'll see that the actions all interconnected in the rubric with academic investigation and with collaboration. It's really important, and make sure then that rather than spending a huge number of the 2,600 words just explaining in minute detail the action piece, that what you're really doing is looking at the rubric and saying, okay, the judges are looking for these things, and we need to write those in there. So maybe it means that there's a detail we really like about our action that we can't put in there because we're writing to the rubric. And we know that there are some things that judges are looking for that we can't do if we use the words that way. And sorry, I keep looking over here because I'm timing myself to make sure I get through this. All right, quantitative and qualitative outcomes. That is true for research, and it's true for action and with the collaborators. So make sure when you're doing your outcomes that you are looking at numbers in terms of how many, how much, those kinds of things. And then the qualitative, which are things like looking at the second part of Phi Theta Kappa's mission to provide opportunities for college students to grow as scholars and leaders, and writing about some of the things that you learned, how you grew, maybe how working with collaborators made a difference for you. Make sure you get those in there and go back to your objectives and think about, what were your objectives and did you achieve those, and why or why not? You want to write about that and the impact. Then these last things, a lot of times because of the 2,600 word limit, a lot of times chapters will forget to write a lot in the impact statement, but remember it's worth 33 points. And so you want to make sure you're looking at the quantitative and qualitative outcomes, but also it asks you about heightened awareness of global issues. It asks about appreciation for lifelong learning and intentional service. The rubric asks about your contributions to understanding the honor study topic and to improving an issue. And it asks about intentional reflection. And those last four things are things that chapters very often overlook. So, pay attention to those. Those earn you points. And you want to earn as many as possible. And I'm going to go to the next slide because I have an example of telling versus showing. And one of the things, even when chapters recognize those last four things, very often they're just telling, we gained an appreciation for lifelong learning. And it's like, phew, we've done it. But you haven't, of course, because you're not going to earn a huge number of points for just saying that. So you want to show instead, and I hope I can actually read this. Let me make sure I can. Let me move this a little bit. All right, we gained an appreciation for lifelong learning by working with our college's research librarian and having our team complete Research Edge to understand how to identify and analyze academic sources. These activities honed our skills in ways that helped us make a strong connection between our honor study topic research and action. The result is that we better understand ways lifelong learning enhances us as scholars and leaders. So you've given judges some evidence that, yeah, we paid attention to the rubric. We did learn, we can make the connection between what we did. Now, I would argue you could put this into, it's writersdiet.org. And if you go into writersdiet.org, you can put that in there. If you, and you can, they'll say leaner, leaner. You don't have to have every single one of those words. But, that's just the idea that you really want to show the judges what you've done. Make sure with those things in the rubric that you are explaining yourself. Again, walking the judges through the process. It is not the greatest project that wins Honors in Action Hallmark Awards. It's the best project that followed the process, followed the rubric, and had the best write-up that wins Honors in Action Hallmark Awards. So, oops, let me get down here. So finally, plan your writing and editing. See it as part of the project. You've got the rubric. You know what needs to be in that Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry. So get together as a team and brainstorm. Go down the rubric and say, here's what we did. Here's what we did. Oh, wait, maybe. Do we have something here? Do we still need to go back? Brainstorm what you want in that entry and do that before you hand it off to the writers. Give all those notes to whoever's going to write the entry. Then, of course, you want to write. I recommend getting the very best writer and then having the team work with the best writer who can take those brainstorming notes, who can take the notes that you've compiled during the year or during the time you've worked on Honors in Action and can compile those, and who can follow the questions and the rubric. And then as a team, edit. If I could have written that many, many more times on that slide and had you see it, I'd do that. The best Honors in Action Hallmark Award entries are heavily edited. No question about that. You want that. And remember, sorry, that's my timer. So make sure they are, and then, submit them. We really want you to submit your Honors in Action Hallmark Award entries. It helps us fulfill the second part of our mission. And we know how you provided opportunities to college students to grow as scholars and leaders. So we get a kick out of reading everything you've done. And so I will say that know that all Phi Theta Kappa chapters work hard, and every chapter that enters the Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry piece of our Hallmark Awards has worked really hard. Use the rubric to work smart. You can put the same effort forward using the rubric to make sure that you've got it and you've got everything on paper so the judges know what kind of spectacular work you've done. So thank you, District 2. Happy Halloween to everybody. It's really exciting to be here, and I thank you for the invitation. And I don't know if we have any time. If we do, that's great. If not, here's my email address, and I'm happy to answer questions at any time in the process, between now and January as you're working. I appreciate it. Thank you for working on Honors in Action. It makes a difference to us. It makes a difference to the world. And it's the way you're going to change the world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan.
You're welcome.
Wow. I just sent a text to my vice president of scholarship, and I'm like, are you getting this? This is gold.
Well, thank you. It's I'm happy I got in most of that in 25 minutes.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We want to make sure that we stay on, and Susan did stay on track, and Susan did put her email address as well. But that I hope you guys know that was as Alexis says, amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it is 10:45. And so what I'm going to do, guys, is go ahead and move into college project writing. And so with that, I want to introduce Jennifer Stanford. Jennifer, I have the hardest time with your last name. I always send 2 emails, one to Jennifer Stafford and one to Jennifer Stanford. I don't know what it is. Jennifer is, let me make sure that I have your title correct. It is Vice President of Program Implementation.
Yeah, well, Associate Vice President.
Associate Vice President of Program Implementation. I met Jennifer. I had actually met her a lot earlier, but Jennifer actually came to a Rokai induction ceremony. Yeah. And I turned around and I was like, whoa. And just so personable. She actually knew one of the students that was being inducted, and Sarah ended up being a chapter officer, vice president of service right after that. And Jennifer, you will see her name because she'll send you your results and how everything went, and a copy of the rubric with the comments. And so Jennifer is a good person to know. She's right here in Texas. And we are very, very excited. I have not attended a Hallmark writing program where Jennifer was not there. So I think that means that we have a guru among us.
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know about a guru, but I will do my best. It's going to be hard to follow Susan. I'm just going to say she is always amazing. And I always try to make sure that I am present for anytime I can hear Susan present, because I continue to learn things from Susan. So really appreciate the opportunity for us to both be presenting today. It is, certainly not the best case scenario of being face to face, but it definitely is the next best thing. And so we really are appreciative of you guys inviting us to participate. And District 2, District 1, District 5, I think all three are present. So Saturday and a holiday at that, kudos to you. Everybody gets to eat at least one piece of candy, right? Just for being here. So we're gonna talk about college projects, and I was really happy that Susan also shared the deadlines. I want to just give you all of the Hallmark Award deadlines just to make sure that you're not forgetting your hardworking administrators. You can nominate your college president, or for the Distinguished College Administrator Award, you can nominate a vice president or dean. And then, of course, you've got the other individual categories listed here. And don't forget about 5-star, because as Susan was saying, we know all of you are working so hard, and 5-star recognition really is, you're only competing with yourself for that. So it's not a competitive process among the other chapters. If you've done the work, we want to recognize you. And so be sure that you've gone online at ptk.org 5-star and updated that progress. All of the entry forms for Hallmark Awards, as Susan said, they're already available, and you can find them at the same site where you submit your scholarship application for Phi Theta Kappa scholarships at my.ptk.org. So just a little housekeeping to get out of the way. And also, you can do this, even virtually, it is still possible. And we know that, chapters really are practicing some great resilience and creativity and flexibility. And so we're very excited that, for us, this is going to be really probably a lot more interesting to read entries for January than it's ever been. So we know that you're overcoming a lot, but we want you to know that we're right there with you, and we are here to support you in any way that we can. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need just a motivational talk, or if you need to brainstorm anything. We are certainly here to do that as well. All right, so just gonna get this out of the way. Honors and action projects come from the honors study topic, and your college project comes from a conversation that you've had with your college administrators about what can the chapter do to help the college. And so it's anything that relates to that college's mission. And just like this group that you see on the screen, you can definitely, make the most of it. It's a great team building exercise, just like honors and action is, and have fun with it, right? But we also know that you're doing very, very important work. And this is just an example. Mountain View College, Omega. This was what they did last year. They, focused on mental health resources. And that certainly is, even more important for 2020. And so just to, reiterate that point, that it really does make a huge difference for a Phi Theta Kappa chapter to help the college take the lead in doing something that benefits all students on campus. So again, it doesn't have to be related to a specific PTK program. It's all about what the college needs at this moment in time. All right, so let's look at the rubrics. There are only 5 categories for college project, and we're gonna, kind of step through these in just a moment. I want to point out that it is still optional. This is only the second year that we've allowed this. During this years ago, chapters, when they submitted hard copies of their entries, they could submit supplemental material. And so we've gotten away from that, but we do allow you to submit up to 3 items. You can upload a photo or a picture, or excuse me, or a table or graph that really helps enhance what your project was all about, but it is optional. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I will say we get some great pictures out of that. So I'm always hoping that chapters will use this to upload at least 1 or 2 pictures, because I think that it does make a difference. Not in the judging, but it does make a difference just for that community of Phi Theta Kappa, and to be able to share those on social media. So there are 5 questions that you'll be answering in your college project entry. And just like Honors in Action starts out with kind of that executive summary or abstract of your project, that's what college project is going to ask you to do too. So kind of set it up for the judge. You know, what was the project? If this is your elevator speech, if you will, about what the project was, what you set out to accomplish. And then you're going to break it down for the judges in the other questions 2 through 5. Question 2 is all about that planning process. And we're going to show you some of the things that we're looking for there, but we want to know how the sausage was made. Okay, so there really is, it's part of that showing versus telling. You know, give us that evidence of the work that went into this project so that we can see those skills in action. And of course, who was involved in determining it, as well as who the chapter collaborated with. It doesn't mean that you're going to give a long list of names necessarily. But if you are referring to, say, the college president multiple times, or another person, you probably do want to identify them so that you can, you know, just use their last name moving forward. We want to, again, Phi Theta Kappa's projects are all about giving you those experiential learning. And we want to know how you prepared yourself to carry out this college project. We know you learn by doing, but it is just like with Honors in Action, you need to do some homework before you just dive into implementing the project. And so that's what this question 3 is all about, is what type of skills or knowledge did you need in order to implement it well? I highlighted the next question, the before, during, and after. This is all about your collaborations and communications. And what we normally see is chapters do a good job of telling us, you know, how they set up the project with the administration, but they don't do as well with that, you know, ongoing communication, how that actually played out, and that final report back to the college administration. You do want to close the loop, because remember, the purpose of a college project is to strengthen that relationship between the chapter and the college. And so if there isn't any final report, and it doesn't have to be, you know, this long, extremely detailed report, it could be your Hallmark Award entry. That would be awesome, right? You could use that both ways, but there needs to be some kind of communication at the end that really does help the chapter communicate or articulate how that relationship was strengthened. What did the college administration, you know, what was their feedback at the end? You know, was it a success in all areas, or did you have to take some obstacles or detours during the implementation of the college project? And then finally, those quantitative and qualitative outcomes. That is critical. And as Susan mentioned, one of the things that chapters more often leave out is that how the chapter members and others that were maybe the target audience for your college project, how were they impacted? And so, you know, again, it's all about showing, giving that evidence, that direct, specific evidence of how the chapter members and others grew throughout the process. All right, so you've got 1,600 words for this. So it's not as many as honors in action because there's not as many questions and there's not as many rubrics, but 1,600 words is definitely going to probably take some editing, and it is absolutely true. Editing is a critical part of polishing your Hallmark Award entries. So it can be, I know that there are, some assignments that you may have that are very specific, like this is the question and this is the rubric that we're going to use to evaluate it. But remember that most of the honors, or excuse me, most of the Hallmark Award categories, we read them as a whole. And then we go back and then score according to the rubrics or traits that we're looking for. And I honestly could put an X in all of these boxes, but this is kind of a chart, if you will, that gives you an idea of where the rubrics line up with the questions. But again, you can be really focused on the leadership development and where the growth was that leads to the impact, right? So that's why if you're thinking of it as, the leadership development question only relates to the leadership development rubric, really encourage you to not think of it that way. I mean, yes, you want to directly answer that question, but know that within those 1,600 words, you're able to give the judge a full cohesive picture of your project that's probably going to hit on each of these rubric categories. So just know that going in, that you're really trying to paint a picture for the judge about your college project. It's got to come to life for the judge as they're reading it, because they weren't there for you when you were implementing it. And we really have to emphasize that we try to have as much blind judging as possible. So it's not just headquarters staff. We have other higher education professionals that are very familiar with Phi Theta Kappa that are also serving as judges. So you really do have to, not take any shortcuts when you're explaining what your project was and all of the different steps in it. Okay, so looking at the preparation, this is, again, it's all about that initial stage of getting the college administration support. And I want to point out that for each of these statements, you can get up to 4 points. And one of I think the critical areas that we want you to pay attention to is the outstanding evidence. So you want it to be very specific and it not be just implied. And that's a lot of times, that's what a judge will, really be. The choice is, well, it seems like they did their planning. It seems like they, did some leadership development. But if they're not able to point to very specific elements in your entry, they really are going to have to go with that 2-point rubric. And we encourage them to use fractions as well, like 2.5. Because with so many entries, we want to avoid as many ties as possible. But again, that you need to be able to, make sure that you have given as much critical evidence so that they have things to point to move you up into this 3 to 4 point range. So let's take a look. I'm going to give you one example. This came from an actual chapter entry. It's not a Texas entry. I didn't want to, single anyone out, just for being uncomfortable about, seeing your chapter's work. But this is an example of the team doing a good job of saying, up front, who the process of how they organized meeting with the college president. And they specifically say that, knowing President King's student-centered approach, we anticipated he would request our input. We actually encourage every chapter to have some ideas in their back pocket just in case you are asked to provide ideas about what the chapter could do. But know that your first and foremost role is to listen to the administration. So you don't want to go in and say, let me present these ideas to you. You want to ask what their ideas are first, and then let that conversation play out, whether they ask you for your ideas or, it's a mutual conversation about what could be done. So that is critical. If you have not met with the college president, if there's a reason why you were not able to meet with the president or campus CEO, let the judges know that. That should be in your entry. It is possible to still gain points, but they need to know if there was, just a meeting conflict, or it just wasn't possible in the time frame. Whatever it is, explain it so the judge can fairly evaluate you in that area. Okay, let's take a look at leadership development. And leadership development has several components. I want to give you an example of really doing a good job of telling the judge that you assessed areas and how the members strengthened skills necessary. But first, I want to remind you that there are lots of Phi Theta Kappa resources as well as college resources to help your chapter do some intentional leadership development work. So don't forget about these. Your advisor can certainly help point you in the right direction. There may be other faculty that are involved in helping you prepare. And Phi Theta Kappa has our PTK Edge courses as well as our online leadership course as well. And you don't want to just say, well, our officers completed Competitive Edge, for example. You want to directly relate what they learned in Competitive Edge to the college project. How did they apply that to implementing the college project? All right, so here's an example. Okay, so even in the very beginning, when you're talking about the preparation question, you can, have something that relates to leadership development, and this chapter, again, the members were nervous about meeting with the president. And so that was an opportunity for them to, again, strengthen their leadership and confidence level. And then they go on to say this particular project had a survey involved. And so they talked very specifically about how they worked with faculty to ensure that that survey was valid, that it had opportunities for qualitative student and faculty input. And since your chapter is going to be writing about not only measurable outcomes, but also those qualitative outcomes, they were planning ahead, right, to make sure that they were getting that kind of data. And then they also did a good job because this led them to, when they were working on their preparations, it led them to discover a community resources webpage that also needed to be updated. So it was yet another opportunity for them to serve the college. So that, again, was not only in the preparation, but it was leadership development. And it was also related to the communication and collaborative effort, as well as impact. So you see how you can be addressing all of the different rubrics with just one question and one response to the question. Now, there's the other part of the leadership development rubric is also, about that critical thinking as well. And this, the significant leadership roles as well. So just a couple more examples. This chapter, this is actually our most distinguished chapter from Jefferson State Community College for 2020, Beta Lambda Delta. And they used bulleted statements, but know that you don't want to rely just on bulleted statements, right? You want to have that narrative, the paragraphs that you're setting up for this. But there are going to be times in your application where it makes sense to have a bulleted point. But again, you want to explain those bulleted points and not just have a list. And they did a really good job. I think that, again, you're not just saying what you did, but what you specifically learned from that experience, why that was considered developing your leadership or your knowledge for this particular project. So wanted you to see that example. And then here's another example of how they really emphasize the organizational part of the project and showing that critical thinking, because for this particular project, they were working with a nonprofit that serves individuals with disabilities, and they were starting a culinary certificate program that these students would be, or these individuals would be eligible for. And so you get a sense right off the bat of how they were breaking down the project, because it was very much a comprehensive project. And you also get the sense of, how they thought through each step, what needed to happen, what was the rationale behind those steps in order to make sure the project was successful. Okay, so how are we doing? Okay, got like just a few minutes. So wrapping up, communications, cooperative effort. Again, this is so important. I've already mentioned that a lot of times we see chapters leave off that final report, and they also leave off, how they actually set up the communication, right? The flexibility and or creativity, that is also important. Even if you felt like that things went like clockwork, you want to be mindful of providing the information to the judges that show why things went like clockwork. That was careful planning on the chapter's part. If you really felt like you didn't run into any challenges, which honestly, I find that hard to believe, but if you felt like the project really went off smoothly, you can still demonstrate how effective the planning was and how the chapter anticipated any issues that they may encounter. But let's look at, again, this communication effort, this chapter, the most distinguished chapter. They talked about having an internal communications coordinator for the ones on campus, and then the external communications, because they were working with many different partners in the community. And even for their, they had local media coverage. And so they really needed to step up their game with communications because of having to, have that public relations aspect of the project as well. Okay, impact. All right, so quantitative data, qualitative data, both of those are important. It's not an either or if you're trying to get the maximum points. And as we mentioned, that meaningful reflection, that opportunity for you to really explain and really get at the heart of the mission of Phi Theta Kappa, of how the chapter members grew as scholar leaders, as well as others that participated in the project. It's not just about the members, it's about providing those opportunities for others as well. For quantifying accomplishments, I want to just give you an example. This is not from a Hallmark entry, but this is just an example where sometimes chapters may feel like that their measurable items are very limited. Maybe there's only one thing that you feel like you can point to, whether that was funds raised or maybe the number of hours that members worked on a project. But there are ways to think about your leadership roles and try to quantify them as well. And so this is just an example of that. This is also a really good practice for your resume. And Dr. Lynn Tincher-Ladner and Dr. Blake Ellis just did a creating infographic resume webinar last week that is now part of Employment Edge. So if you missed that, I highly recommend that you go back and watch it. It's again part of our PTK Edge program. So it's the Employment Edge course, and that'll give you a lot of good tips about how you can list things in a different way that maybe you wouldn't have even considered, but you're really able to give the breadth of a leadership role when you're saying more than just, so-and-so was the college project vice president, for example. You can give some really good detail about what all that entailed. Okay, so this is again our most distinguished chapter. And they did a great job. They have some direct quotes from the participants that they were helping with the Horizon program. And then they used, even if they had not posted the picture, because that is optional, but they did a good job of explaining how one of the instructors, when they saw the group picture that included both Phi Theta Kappa members as well as some of the Horizon students, they say here, I can't tell which students are from Horizons and which ones are Phi Theta Kappa members. And they say that is the point. We all have obstacles to overcome. And so the picture, I know you're probably curious about it. I'll show you the picture that they included in the project. But again, that was just a really creative way of helping explain some of that professional development. And that wasn't the only thing that they used, but that was an excerpt that I thought was good to share. And then don't forget, I don't have an example of this, but don't forget to always go back to how this project addressed the college's goals. This is not your chapter's goals, but it was what the goals were set by both the chapter and the college, and then how your relationship with the college was strengthened. Presentation, 5 points can be extremely important. And I'll end with a couple of things here. The likely culprits for when chapters don't get all 5 points. Make sure you've got a strong editor on your team. Your advisor can help with this. It can be another faculty or college administrator or staff member, or just someone who's really exceptional in writing and editing. Don't be afraid to use others to help polish your entries. The members do need to write it, and they need to be involved in the editing, but they can have someone coaching them through that process. And then remember that you're not just uploading a document to the Hallmark Awards site. You're actually going to be copying and pasting into each question and answer box, and that's going to take a little bit of time. And so make sure that you incorporate that time so that you're not last minute doing it. And it's very easy to miss something. If you have a chance, I would have another member who was not directly involved, maybe in writing that entry, go back and read it on the Hallmark Awards website so that they can really see if it's, if there was a missing sentence or a missing section. And you'd be surprised how often that happens. And then it, just docks you a couple of points that can mean the difference between winning an award and not winning an award. So that's a very important process. So there's my my email and my phone number as well. If you have questions, we're certainly, I know Susan was saying it too, and we have a whole student engagement department. So there are others who can help you as well. So don't hesitate to reach out, because we really do want to help. And I just want to encourage you to finish strong. This is from Tarrant County, the Fort Worth campus, and this was their last year's project, but they were involved in educating elementary and high school students about the importance of higher education. And so it really is so critical what you're doing, and your colleges need you more than ever. And so I hope that you're inspired to, finish strong this year with whatever your projects were. All right, and I'll turn it back over to Madeline, I think.
Susan, we had one question, and the question was, does it matter if I'm assuming it's the picture, Brandy, is HTML format or rich text?
I just remember at some point having issues myself copying and pasting, and it was because I had it in either HTML format or rich text, and whichever one it wasn't translating everything. So I didn't know if that was going to be an issue or if it mattered at all.
PDF works better, in my opinion.
Yeah, Notepad, if you can just remove all of it and put it in the Notepad app, Mary's absolutely right. It does help. And now remember that the application software does not allow boldface, italics, and
Right.
so
That's the stuff
we're
that
not,
HTML does. Yeah.
yeah, so we're not counting off for that with APA style, but everything else it has to be there. So
Okay.
you put it in Notepad and then copy and paste.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I typically because our students write typically in like Google Docs, but then I save that as RTF, and then it can be pasted in without any of the little wingdings that you can get otherwise.
Right.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why you want to make sure someone's proofreading it behind you in the application site, because weird things happen on the computer, right? I'm going to stop sharing this so you guys can see. Okay.
Were there any more questions? Jennifer, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Gosh. I again want to emphasize, I don't know if you guys know, but you are getting excellent information directly from the source. So I hope that I hope that you're taking really good notes. I put in the chat that PowerPoints I will forward to everyone that signed in on the attendance, and I will put the link just in case someone came in. We are going to take a 5-minute break. So I have 11:18 on my clock. So I'm real bad at math, but I think that's 11:23. 11:23. We'll reconvene and we'll hear from Kara Hogan. So we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Did you need me to gavel that out, or are you good?
You got it?
I got that. All right, we'll see you in just a moment.
I'm gonna pause the recording. Just remind me to restart it, and when we start back up.
To introduce our next speaker. Am I on mute? No.
You may need to give them just a couple of seconds.
Okay, I'll give them a couple of seconds.
You give people 5 minutes, and then.
I never saw that it stopped.
Oh, I paused it, and then.
Oh, okay.
So we will. You give people 5 minutes, and then they go do something for 5 minutes, and they go, "Oh, I gotta go back."
Gotta go back. I did put the form, the link to the Google form in the chat again. If you have not had a chance to sign in and give me your email address, I would appreciate it if you would do that. And I will send copies of the PowerPoints to everyone that is that signed in on the Google form. So that's how you will get your copies. I will send them to everybody that signed in and gave me their email address. That work, Danella?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Bonnie, we got you?
Yep, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
I'm trying to do too many things at once today.
I understand.
Okay, so our next speaker is my coworker, my co-advisor, Odessa College's registrar, and one of our professors for technical and business writing, and the person who took on the challenge of keeping me sane. Don't know how she does it, but she manages, and I'm grateful for her. So here is Miss Kara Hogan.
Hello, can y'all hear me okay? Okay, great. So that was a very kind introduction from Bonnie. It sounds like I do a lot more than I actually do, so bear with me. Today, I'm gonna go over just some general good practices for writing, and some of this is geared specifically towards PTK, but then also this is just good tips in general. Like Bonnie said, I do teach a technical and business writing class, and this is a little bit different than your general English 1, English 2 comp courses. So what I talk about will be more practical kind of writing, emails, that kind of stuff. So everybody does like writing, right? Yeah, some of you probably not. I totally get that. And I'm sure y'all can all relate to that writing process, which is probably more accurate than the real writing process. So I'm going to start with some of my favorite writing tips. Some of y'all might not feel confident in your writing skills and the success that you have as writing, but know that the more you do it, the better you're going to be. Practice makes perfect, as with sports, those kind of things. Writing is a learned skill. You can be good at it. Even if you are a math-minded person or a scientific-minded person, you could be good at writing too. My favorite example is my sister. She is a nursing student. I think she is crazy to do that, but she went through grad school, post-grad work, and she would always send me her essays to write. And in the beginning, they were horrible. It essentially looked like I just cracked open paint and just spread it all over her essays and what she was writing. But by the time she got to the end of her work, she was actually very successful. And there would just be a couple of minor things that she wouldn't catch. And so my sister's my best and favorite example of somebody who was not great starting, but the more they did it and consistently did it, the better she got. Another great tip is when you are writing, just get it all out there. Word vomit that up and just get it all out there on the page. Don't try and stop yourself in that writing process and go back and edit things. No, just keep going, get it all out there. And then once you hit that block, or once you have gotten it all out, then you can take a step back and go back through and read everything. And that's when you can begin the editing process. But don't stop yourself in the middle of a really good roll of writing. Next, read your work out loud. This is probably my absolute favorite tip, and it's something I tell my students essentially every time I give them any kind of feedback, and it's just generally good, but it works. It really works. So reading your work out loud forces you to slow down and actually read what you wrote. So when you're reading in your mind, you'll skip over things. If you have a misspelled, you might miss it. Versus if you read it out loud, you're more likely to catch that. But then also reading out aloud shows you where you might be missing a period, or a comma shouldn't actually be there because it doesn't make sense. So you're actually putting words to your actual words, and it helps you catch all of those things. So above all, if you get nothing else out of this, just read it out loud, or have somebody else read it out loud to you, because then your chances of making sure that you get everything are going to be even better. And then ultimately, have confidence in your own writing. So many of my students start the semester off saying, I'm not a good writer, I can't do this, I can't do that, but then they start turning stuff in, and you are better than you think. It just might be that you're not great at knowing when to put a comma in. You might get comma happy or capitalizing. Those are easy fixes, but you are better than you think you are. So give yourself a little grace and continue going. And like I said, practice. So active voice versus passive voice. This is something that some people know, other people don't. Easiest way to explain it though is active. Somebody or something is doing something. There's an action there. Versus passive. something is being done to something else. So real quick example, active voice, I kicked the ball. Passive voice, the ball was kicked. And you probably don't realize that you use passive or active voice when you're actually writing, but it does make a difference. One of the biggest differences between active and passive is passive usually comes across a little weaker sounding, and then you also have to use more words to get your point across. Whereas with active voice, it can be very simple, straightforward, and it tends to sound stronger. That being said, there is a time and a place for active and passive voice, and passive voice can sometimes be good. If you don't want to blame somebody for something, or you want to lessen the impact of what you're saying, passive voice is great. But when you are doing academic writing, in particular, when you're writing for a college project and honors in action, use active voice, don't use passive voice. But if you are you're trying to explain something to your instructor and maybe you missed a deadline, that's when you want to use passive voice. That way you can kind of shove the blame elsewhere and just subtly get by. So pay attention to whether you're using active voice or passive, and then pay attention to the impact that has, because there is a vast difference between the two. And also going back to that word count, like I said, active voices usually takes fewer words, and so when you hit that max and then you get over it, that's one way to lower the number of words that you're actually using. So I'm going to give you a quick minute to read this here, and then I will talk about that. So this is a great example of structuring your words and your sentences and the impact that can have. Words are a powerful, powerful tool. And when you wield them properly, you can do a lot with them. I classify myself as a word nerd. My love language is words, just anything words, and I'm good. But you can see just the difference in those first two paragraphs, using short chunks of this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. And when you're only giving facts, it's boring. Nobody wants to pick up a legal document and just read that for grins and giggles. Unless you're a lawyer, and there's some special people out there who do enjoy that, but most people, you don't want to read those kinds of things. You want something that is a story that draws you in. You want to make it compelling, and varying your sentence length and using different styles and lengths of your sentence, you can make your story compelling. And when you're writing competitively, so for college project, honors and action, and scholarships and entrance essays to different schools, you want your writing to be compelling. You want to draw your reader in and have them interested in what you're saying, because if you can tell a story through your writing, then you're more likely to succeed versus, this sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. That's boring. Nobody wants to read that. So make it compelling. Think of the different ways that you can make your story compelling, using different words, different styles, different punctuation even. There's so many tools for writing that you can use to make it interesting. Now, the structure of your sentences, also very important. And I'm not going to go into the fine details about noun, subject, predicate, modifiers, all of that, because even I don't have all of that stuff memorized. A lot of times when I'm not sure about something, I go hit Google, and when all else fails, Google will help you out and learn you what you need to know. But when you are writing, put what you want emphasized first. whether you realize it or not, the order that you put your thoughts also makes a difference. For example, if I'm giving you an instruction on how to change something on your washing machine, and I say, ooh, excuse me, I scrolled wrong. Loosen the screw using a flathead screwdriver, but do not remove the screw. So sometimes when you're reading that and then you go to do the action, you don't necessarily pay attention to the last half of the sentence, versus if you start the sentence out with, don't remove the screw, but unscrew until it's loose, then you're changing things up to where your reader automatically knows, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And then the rest of the sentence, the emphasis isn't placed there, but your reader still will understand. And then one thing that I see frequently in my class is students will write a sentence and then another sentence and another sentence, and none of it really relates. It all has something to do with the main topic, but it doesn't flow well. And so when you are writing, make sure that every sentence relates to the one before it, the one after it. It doesn't need to say exactly what you're saying over and over again, but there should be a good flow to where your reader understands the process that you went through from beginning to end without a hard wall, and then they have to go over that wall to get to the next one. So relate everything. And then be clear and concise with your words. When we're writing, a lot of times we don't realize how unclear we are writing, because you're just putting things out from your brain. But slow yourself down and make sure that you are being clear in exactly what you're saying, because the reader doesn't always know what you're trying to say. They're not in your mind, you're in your mind, but you want to make sure that your reader understands what's in your mind. So make sure that you are getting your point clearly across, and then don't write like you speak ever, because generally we speak in a more relaxed, almost slangy kind of way. So you want your language to be a little bit more formal and professional. Don't ever use the simplified spelling of words, the letter U or R. Spell things out to make sure that you're using the proper spelling of words, and don't use slang like gonna or fixin' to. While we talk that way as Texans, you don't want to write that way. Make sure that you keep it professional and formal. So this happens to be one of my favorite memes. I'm a fan of the thesaurus, but this is some of the ways that you can help clear up your writing, using it a lot. What is it? Who is it? I don't know what it is. So whenever you are writing, unless you cannot avoid it, don't use it. Use the actual noun or whatever it is that you're talking about. Put that word in place of it. Don't use it. And same thing with they, he, and she. If you're constantly saying they did this, or he did this, it can get lost in the confusion of what you're actually talking about. So make sure that you are being specific with your subject. Don't always refer to somebody as he or she or they. It's okay to do that on occasion, but if that's all you're using, then your subject becomes muddied up and we're not sure what you're talking about. Who versus that? This one is a very, very common one as well. When you're referring to people, you want to use who, and when you're referring to objects, you want to use that. So instead of saying, I lost my example. Ultimately, when you're talking about people, don't refer to somebody as a that, refer to them as a who. And then lastly, I'm sure y'all can all relate to right click and then thesaurus in Word. It can be a great tool, but it can also cause some serious confusion. Just because the words are synonyms according to Word or even thesaurus.com does not mean they are actually the same word, one for one trade out. For example, Big Brother is watching you turn into enormous sibling is viewing you, and totally different meanings, right? Big Brother is not an enormous sibling. Big Brother refers to the government. So if you're going to use thesaurus, make sure that the words actually have the same meaning in the same context. That's very important. Otherwise, it's going to be one of those places where an instructor copies that and then they go paste it to their Facebook. So, you know, everybody can have a good laugh. So don't let that good laugh be at your expense. Be careful about using that thesaurus. And then we all know about those lovely word counts, and you originally get to them and you think, oh my gosh, I can't write this many words. And then once you get it all out onto paper, you have 500 words over, and then you have to go back through and you have to pare it down. So these are some of the ways that you can take, you know, 200 words down to 150. Semicolons happen to be my favorite punctuation. There's the other meaning as far as, you know, life continues, but ultimately semicolons are just a fantastic way to keep a sentence going and to relate to things. And then you can also get rid of the comma and, or comma or semicolon therefore, comma. You can just go with a straight semicolon and continue your sentence. But you need to make sure that those two sentences are complete sentences. You can't have a fragment and then a semicolon and then a complete sentence. So if you're going to use a semicolon, make sure you use it correctly. Have two complete sentences, and then you can have that semicolon. And then that, probably one of the words that is pet peeve for me, students and faculty, staff, normal people throw in that a lot. If you go read pretty much anything, you'll catch a lot of that. And sometimes that is necessary. You need that word in your sentence for the sentence to make sense. However, it is not always necessary. So if you can read through your sentence and you can take out that, and even other words such as the or and, lots of unnecessary words, you can pull those words, and if your sentence still makes sense, don't put it back in there. That's a way for you to lose a lot of words, because if you have 20 unnecessary that's, then that's 20 words that you can use in another way, or that you can cut down from your 200 words over, or whatever it is. So if you have unnecessary words, just pull them. And again, if you can read through your sentence and that sentence makes sense without that or without the, and there are other examples as well, but that is usually is the one that is most common. And then take out the fluff. So when we're doing comp writing for, you know, your English 1 or English 2 course, you have a page limit. You know, your instructor wants you to write between 5 and 7 pages. That's cool. Not always what it's going to look like when you're writing for PTK though. We have these limits, and sometimes in other essays that you have to write, you're going to have limits. So when you're writing, take out the fluff. We don't need to know your whole backstory from 10 years ago about what you did in the grocery store that one time with your mom. If it doesn't relate to your topic, if it doesn't relate to what you were trying to get across, your point, take it out. You make sure that you're focused, laser point on your topic and what you're writing about. And then if you have extra stuff in there, you know, really think about, okay, is this adding to what I'm saying? Is it making a difference? Is it important? Is it necessary? And if you look at it and you say, no, I can take this out, then take it out. Or think about how you can reword it to where it makes more sense, or is just a little bit more concise. But fluff is unnecessary. This is not a, we need to up the word count and add more and more and more. Be straight, be to the point, clear, 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 and not all the extra added marshmallow. So I happen to love Harry Potter. It is my favorite. And while this was not in the books, this was a quote from the movie. Michael Gammon's Dumbledore says this, and this just hits straight in my heart, because words are everything. You can hurt, you can lift up, you can explain, you can confuse, you can make people laugh, you can make people cry, you can do anything with words. So when you are writing, think about what you're saying, think about how you're saying it, the structure, the phrasing, anything extra that you have in there that doesn't make sense. And whether you're texting a friend on your phone or you're writing an essay in class, how you word things, your tone, phrasing, the different style techniques that you're using have an impact. And if you can master that even a little bit, you have a hand up on so many people. So think about those words that you're using and how you're using them. So that is all I have for y'all as far as my favorite writing tips and other thoughts. So if y'all have any questions, I would be happy to answer them, or feel free to reach out and email me at any point.
Thank you so much, Kara. That was perfect. Will you email me the PowerPoint so that I can share it?
Absolutely.
I was like, that might be proprietary. I don't know. I'll put my email in the chat, and I emailed you as well. That perfect. Did I see? Okay, I do see one question. What would be the first stepping stone to becoming a better writer?
To write, really. And it really depends on the kind of writing you're doing, because my style of writing is very short and to the point when it comes to fact-based. So if I'm answering a question about if it's a black and white kind of thing, then my answer is going to be very direct and this long, versus if you're asking my opinion on something, it's going to be a whole novel. But ultimately, to become better at something, you just have to keep doing it. And I mean, you can blog, you can journal, just get your thoughts out there, and then go back and look at what you wrote. And another piece of advice that I failed to mention was let it rest. So write out what you have, and then don't immediately go back and start looking at it. It's still really fresh in your mind, and you're just that familiar with it. And so you'll be biased, whether you want to admit it or not. When it comes to your writing, you're biased, and you don't necessarily want to have your mistakes or anything like that pointed out. So let it rest. If you give it, 3-4 days or even a week, that's great, because then you're going to come back to it and you probably won't even remember what you wrote. And so you'll have fresh eyes to really be able to review. But ultimately, you just have to start writing and just continue to write, have other people review it. But the more you write, the better you'll get.
Thank you so much, Kara. Okay. We are going to go ahead and advance. And so, Anna, I see that you wrote a question. We're going to go ahead and I tell you what, Kara, are you going to be in? Can I forward this question to you directly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I guess you guys know I'm from Rokai. Rokai is one of 6 campuses at Tarrant County College, which are scattered around the Fort Worth Metroplex. We are, South Campus is kind of right in the middle of the southeast portion of Fort Worth, and we are the original campus and opened in 1968. So I right before I became an advisor for Roke High, they had a president that everybody gushed over. And my goodness, all the students were, do you know Lori? You know Lori? Well, Lori used to say, Lori, so our president at the time was a guy named Joel Loveland. And I said, I guess I am going to have to meet this Lori, because a lot of times things would come out. Well, according to Lori, well, I finally met Lori King Nelson, the immediate president. So I guess that was 2013, 2014 year. And Lori had received the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship. She is the still only Tarrant County College South student to have done so. Oh, and President Jordan also said Lori's name over and over and over again. What I found was the warmest, the kindest person that loved her some Phi Theta Kappa. I wouldn't write that, but I'm saying it. She loved her some Phi Theta Kappa. She was well known around the district. She was well known within the region, and she always has wonderful things to share. So Lori is going to talk to us about putting your best foot forward when applying for scholarships. So I will now turn over the floor to Lori King Nelson.
Hi, everybody. And thank you so much, Madeline. And oh, it's so good to see you. And it's so good to see you, Mary. And I know Jennifer is out there, and so many people that I know and I miss. My Phi Theta Kappa years were some of the very best of my life. I don't even have to tell you, it's like the greatest organization. It lifts you up to heights you never would imagine that you would ever reach. And you build friendships that last forever. I just talked to Joel just a couple of days ago. He came by, and we are still very good friends and will be for a lifetime. Kara's presentation was fantastic, and she covered a number of points that are so important in scholarship writing. That's where Phi Theta Kappa writing and scholarship writing really intersect. But before I get into my points, which aren't many, because I mean, it's a real limited amount of things that you need to know to be able to do a good, solid scholarship application. There's something called the imposter syndrome, and I have suffered from that for just a large part of my life. I still do sometimes. I'm getting the better of it though. I'm kicking it out of my life. If you've ever heard of this, it's the idea that you have of yourself that you are not worthy of something, or that people are going to find out that you are not qualified, when in fact you are. You would not be where you are right now if you were an imposter. You've worked hard to get where you are, and no one did it for you. You did it yourself through hard work, long hours, a demand for excellence from yourself. So do not ever, no matter what you're applying for or what situation you're stepping into, do not ever feel like you are not worthy. You've worked hard to be there, and you deserve every good thing that's coming to you and every good thing that's happening right now. Okay? Don't let that be a part of your personal or professional life to feel like you're an imposter. So moving from there, because that can really color the way that you write about yourself. How you personally feel about yourself has everything to do about what you say when you're writing your essays, and you are selling yourself to this committee that's going to read thousands of these. So the first one, make sure that you research the scholarship that you're going to apply for. There are some scholarships that we're not eligible for. I mean, Garrett may be eligible for one where Jen is not. Like it just depends on what the focus of that scholarship is. So look at it and just see. Now that doesn't mean that you can't apply, because I have friends that applied for scholarships that were based on students pursuing degrees in the law, and there weren't enough students applying, and so they took students, the business students, and other students who thought that maybe they would minor in criminal justice or something like that. So if you can tie in something else you're doing, then, you know, give it a shot. The worst they can do is tell you no, or you're not qualified. So, but you don't want to be wasting your time and your precious energy on things that you have no shot at getting because you're not going to be a lawyer. So there, just keep that in mind. When you are filling out the application, complete the application in full. Do not leave any spaces empty. You may feel like one of the sections doesn't apply to you. Write something anyway. If you have to use your imagination a little bit and say, if I were, then this is what I would be doing. I can see how my mindset works towards this direction. You know, just find a way to connect something and put something in there. Do not leave any spaces empty. They will just assume that you overlooked it. So make sure that when you're filling it out that you use Times New Roman, 12-point, double-spaced every time. Make sure your name is on every page of that application too. Read the instructions. Read the instructions before you sit down to fill it out. Read the instructions again while you're filling it out. And make sure you read the instructions after, so that you can go back and make sure that you followed the instructions all the way through. I will raise my hand as someone who did not read the instructions on an application, and my application got tossed. I was totally qualified for that, and my application got tossed because I didn't fill it out properly with the information that they wanted. Most applications these days are done online, so you don't really have to worry about your handwriting, but I did have to fill out one 2 years ago that had to be mailed in. They're doing it old school, and I wasn't sure why, but I did it. So at that point, I had to make sure that my handwriting was very neat, that I wasn't making any mistakes. I must have rewritten it like 30 times because I would make some mistake on it, and I didn't want to have a scratched out something. So if you find that you have to fill something out by hand and you don't have good handwriting, find someone who does and let them write it out for you. You can write the whole thing out and then hand it to them and let them hand write it out. One of the differences is in trying to find, okay, like my name. This is my name. I don't know if you can see it. The top one is my signature and the bottom one is me printing. Now, you would not be able to tell that my name is Lori King Nelson from my signature. It's the same way when we look at like imposter syndrome right there. That's not very neat. It's really more hand scratch. So you want to make sure that everything is neat and precise. And I mean, you're not looking for perfection. No one has perfect handwriting except my mother. And so you have to just find somebody that can do a better job than you, unless you have good handwriting. Some people do. So when you're writing your essays, here is where almost everybody goes wrong. You either don't want to sell yourself because you feel like that sounds too egotistical, or you sell yourself so hard that they're like, this person has got to be lying about all this, and they just put yours aside. So you want to make your essays personal, but like Kara said, you don't want to tell people what you went to the store to buy last week. There's no reason for them to have any of that information unless something happened at the store that impacted your life in a way that moving forward, you are setting your life on a different course because of whatever incident happened at the store. I had an incident happen at a meeting that I was in one time, and many of the people at the meeting, and this has got to be 20 years ago or something, many of the people at the meeting had decided that when they went on a church trip to Israel, that they were going to make sure that they wore the biggest cross around their neck, and they want to make sure everybody knew they were Christians. Well, you're going into a Jewish land. And so but this was their idea. And I tried to explain to them that there's a matter of respect involved in that. And at that moment, I realized that just through this one meeting, this interaction with these women, that somebody needed to be able to teach people, to educate people about religious differences. That's where I am now. That is what I do. So this one thing that happened to me, I certainly wouldn't write my essay saying, yeah, I went to a meeting one time and we talked about religion. I want to tell them what happened, the specifics of what happened and how that changed me. And that's just one small thing. I know there are 30 small things in each of your lives that have changed the way that you have focused your future. So we're in a constant state of evolution, and so many things happen to us along the way. Can you wait 1 second? Today is my granddaughter's birthday, and I'm baking her cake at the same time as I'm doing this. So somebody needs to go take the cake out of the oven. Sorry about that. So you want to make sure that your essays are personal, concise, specific to what the scholarship is about. When I was writing for the Jack Kent Cooke scholarship, that one was so much different from the ones that are offered through Phi Theta Kappa. All the Coca-Cola scholarship, the Gust White, and it's been a few years. So, but y'all know all of those, that the common applications for all that. The Jack Kent Cooke was different. It did not require an advisor to give you a recommendation to fill out the scholarship. And so since there was that, there was very little advisor assistance in that area. And I know that I wasn't the only one who felt like I needed the assistance. But because it wasn't something that was just offered for Phi Theta Kappa, although almost all recipients are Phi Theta Kappa members, and that's because we're so awesome. But they had, I think the year that I filled it out, there were 14 essays, 14 separate essays. And that's a lot. It really is. I've never had to do anything like that for any other scholarship. It was a lot because the scholarship itself is worth a lot, and they really want to make sure that they are getting the cream of the crop. And so your essays are going to be absolutely everything when applying for certain scholarships. Some of the questions will be, tell us how your early life formed the person you are now. And you can come off sounding, because we've all had adversity. And that is just, no kidding, where we all come from. And it can come off sounding whiny in an essay, like, woe is me, or it can come off sounding, here's what I grew up in, and here is how it made me stronger and more resilient and more flexible and more adaptable. So you always want to, whatever happened to you when you were growing up, you want to put a good spin on it, and you want to make yourself sound really positive. By the time I had left high school, I had moved, I think it was about 22 times. We were not a stable family. And there were times that I spent 2 months in a school and then got moved to another school in another city. And then would spend 6 weeks in that one and then be somewhere else. So one thing that did for me was made me, that really gave me the ability to make new friends and kind of jump right into things. So there's a positive to everything. So ask your friends. Ask your friends and your family. If you're not sure how to give a spin on something, ask them what they think that adversity did for you, and then write that. Deadlines. Don't miss deadlines. Put that note in front of, like, everything. Tape it to a mirror, put it on the coffee maker for in the morning. And don't wait until the very last minute to submit your application, because this is why I did not get the all Texas Coca-Cola one, is because I was having trouble. I waited until like 11:45 when it was due at midnight, and I was having trouble getting it to submit, and it did not submit until after midnight. And so I missed out on that. So start submitting before. Have your stuff ready before. Keep in mind all of the deadlines. Make copies of all of your paperwork, because if somebody calls you to clarify something, you want to have that right in front of you. You want to know what you said and how you said it. So there's also another reason pieces get lost. Maybe page 3 doesn't make it from the printer to the desk where they're all meeting with all of these packets of everybody. So make sure your name is on every single one of them, and make copies so that you can talk to them if you need to. Proofread everything. This goes hand in hand with reading the instructions several times. Proofread everything. Ask your professors to proofread it for you. Ask your advisors to proofread it for you. Read your essays yourself. Read your essays out loud to someone else. Have them read your essay out loud to you so you can hear what it sounds like, because what we write and what we hear can be two different things. So, and you'll catch yourself. Once you're hearing it read back to you, you'll catch yourself. So keep in mind your grammar and your spelling. Do not ever spell someone's name wrong. That is just critical. If you have to put someone's name in your essays or on recommendation letters or something like that, recheck it. Do not spell their names wrong. That'll live with you forever. So just do that. Use Grammarly and Paper and other programs like that to do your spell checking and your grammar checking. So you can run that through it first, and then pass it on to others to catch anything that those sites might miss. Be real and be authentic and be honest. Above all, be honest. Do not tell them that you have done something that you have not done. It'll come out. And then you will be excluded from consideration. Tell them what it is that you want to do with your life. Where are you going? Why are you working so hard right now to gain scholarships that'll send you to a 4-year university? What benefit are you going to be in the world, in your community, by them taking a chance on you? And why? It's not even just what do you want to do, it's why do you want to do it? What are your reasons for wanting to end hunger in school children in Alvarado? Or, you know, that just whatever it is that you're planning on doing, you want to tell them what it is and why you want to do it, how it is going to impact you, how it's going to impact others. In those situations, it is, you can't tell them too much in those situations. You can always go back and kind of edit it down word-wise to make it clearer. But give them the full feeling of why you're on this path, where you came from, how you got here, why you're here, where you're going, and where you want to end up. I mean, you have to have goals, and they want to know that you have goals and that you've been working towards them. What uniquely qualifies you to receive this scholarship from them, and what are you going to do with it? I had an important thought just now, and it's gone because I went ahead and finished my sentence, and that's what happens when we get older. It is, I want to reiterate that you are absolutely qualified for everything that you go after at this point. You are qualified for a great education, and you also know that whether or not you receive any of these scholarships, which you're going to, I know you will, because you're Phi Theta Kappa. But you're still going to succeed because that's what you want to do with your life. If it weren't what you wanted to do with your life, you wouldn't be where you are right now. So there is always a way to achieve what you want to do. So I know that Madeline and Mary have all of my contact information. And if there's anyone who would benefit by being in touch with me to ask specific questions about the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship or a few of the others. I mean, I've helped people with a lot of different ones, so I have a little bit of experience with that. So if there's anybody who don't hesitate to contact me. I will get back to you, and we can either meet through Zoom or by phone or through text or email or however you're more comfortable. And I'd be glad to walk you through any process or proofread or hear your story and read it back to you in a way that might be essay worthy. So thank you for letting me speak with you today. I really appreciate it. I miss my Phi Theta Kappa years.
Lori, I put your email address without your permission in the chat. Is that fine?
That's fine. Absolutely fine. Yeah.
Natalie, can I interrupt for one second?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just going to say something that Lori shared that I think is tremendously important is about being honest. You guys are awesome and you've done awesome things. And so there is no need to try to stretch beyond the things that you've done and you've experienced. And then like the practical side of that is, speaking about the Phi Theta Kappa scholarships in particular, before you're awarded, those get sent to the advisors to verify that everything you have put in your essays is correct. And a few years ago, I had a chapter officer who really stretched the truth about what that officer had contributed to the chapter projects. And I hated it. And obviously I just adored this person and had worked very closely with this person, but I had to say, this isn't factually correct. And so that person did not win the scholarship, because you may think it's just a little stretch here on one thing, but it starts bringing, in questions about, is everything else also stretched, So just your integrity is important throughout everything you do. And it's certainly true here as well.
Yes, absolutely. And that is the very reason why I always say, be honest. Just be honest. You don't want to have anything come back at you. You want every shot at these scholarships. Yeah, Jennifer, yeah, be authentic, be who you are, because that's the awesomeness that got you here. So it's working.
Thank you so much, Lori.
I can't wait until we can all be back together again in
Oh,
person. I can't. Yeah, I miss that. I miss hugs. I miss the energy. Yeah.
Well, we're making it work and taking advantage of the special opportunities that life right now and life as it is presenting, and hugs are coming.
They are. They are. Y'all take care.
Thank you. Guys,
Bye.
we're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break. It is 12:21. We will reconvene at 12:26 with Dr. Jessica Hargis. Don't want to miss it. About letters of recommendation. Now, this is aimed at advisors, but I wanted you all to hear as well. I wanted you to hear what you should be looking for, and what you need to provide to make sure that you get really good letters of recommendation. So with that, I will hush and turn the floor over to Dr. Jessica Hargis from the Alpha Mu Tau chapter, Collin College, our associate coordinator of the Texas region.
Well, I have left my potty mouth behind, and I am a little more subdued today. Working on my New York accent, apparently it is not very good. But I packed my car in the Boston yard. That's as close as I get. So I am Dr. Hargis. I did change up my presentation just a little bit because after we spoke, I thought maybe I'll, these are some problems I see when people come to me for recommendation letters. So it's kind of for everybody. So I do have a PowerPoint, which is super boring. So we will share that with you because everybody loves a boring PowerPoint. Please let me know. I do have two personas here because my sound doesn't work on one of my computers. So are you able to see the PowerPoint presentation? Okay, excellent. No, that's it. I just wanted to make sure you could see that. So I'm going to go through the letters of recommendation and just take you through some, trying to make good choices. All right, and I do have some key tips from my one of my heroes, RBG, and so throughout the presentation, you will see some tips that the brilliant scholar has left for us. But some key things to remember is every scholarship has a purpose and every letter of recommendation serves a need. And this is something for both advisors and students to consider. I've had students who've come to me and they're like, hey, I need a letter of recommendation. And I'll ask them, okay, what's the criteria? And they're like, oh, I don't know. They just said I need a letter. And then I've had, some people who are applying for scholarships. I recently had a student apply for a scholarship and I'm writing her a letter and I asked for some information. As I'm putting it together, I clicked on the link for the scholarship and I realized it was only for people in the Bay Area. Now I know we're remote, but I sent her an email and I was like, I did not realize you were living in San Francisco. And she was like, I am not. And I said, okay, let's have a talk about what's going on here. So sometimes you apply for scholarships and they're just not for you. Right? And sometimes you get letters of recommendation that you don't think are doing you justice. And so this quote from RBG really comes to mind that you might be dejected sometimes, but you just need to go on to the next challenge and give it all you have, right? So if you're writing a scholarship and you don't get it, don't stop applying for scholarships. That's what I get from this. And when I write a letter, I always think, this is the best it can be, but then, I try and adjust and fix, and I like to make my letters very personal, and I'll get to that in just a moment. So what I tell my students and my officers, my members, anybody who will listen to me actually, and that's very few people, is when you start your career, you should start writing a scholarship resume. All right, and what is this resume? This resume should keep track and easily report information about what you are doing. I know that I've done this in the past. I'm doing stuff. I'm like, oh, this is great. I do a yearly report about myself. That's how I keep my job. I have to tell people, you know, the board of trustees, this is what I'm doing. Well, at the end of the year, I'm old. I can't remember what I've done. So every month I have to put down into a document, what have I done? What has it done for others? You know, what's the point of all this? And this is what I need you as a student to do. Right? You want a scholarship resume, you know, a draft biography. You never know when somebody's going to want a bio on you. Short and long-term goals, because if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. An endeavor essay. This is something that, especially in Phi Theta Kappa, they ask you a lot of times, you know, what was the biggest thing you've ever done? Something that's exciting, and it changes. Sometimes you've done something, you're like, oh my gosh, I've never done anything this amazing. And then the next month you have another opportunity and you need to adjust that endeavor essay. So you could have multiple essays, because remember, every scholarship is different, and one might be an academic endeavor, one might be a career endeavor, one might be a leadership endeavor. So you need to constantly be thinking about and writing about these things. And then, of course, a list of accomplishments in service, research, and leadership. And Phi Theta Kappa gives you so many opportunities for all three of these areas. I get these students all the time, and I remember vividly, I was at a Catalyst one year when it was Nerd Nation, and I was talking to a Harvard rep, because a lot of my students were like, oh, I wish I could go to Harvard, but I can't go there anymore. And one of the things he complained about was students no longer are trying to say, hey, look how great I am. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Students now go to schools and say, what are you going to give me? Well, your GPA isn't very special. And I hate to say this, especially to really, really smart people, but you're competing against other special people with 4.0s and big numbers on your GPA. And so when a college is looking at you for whether or not they're going to take you, or a scholarship is looking at you, whether or not you should deserve the scholarship, they're not looking at the number. Right? It's very hard to admit, yes, you're working very hard for that good number, but what they're looking for now are all those achievements. What makes you stand out? And so if all you're going to do is be like, well, I have a 4.0, I'm going to get in, I'm going to have a 4.0, I'm going to get in, you're going to be sorely disappointed in the end when you're up against other 4.0s who have written about themselves through their entire academic career so that they know how to highlight themselves and really stand out amongst all the other 4.0s. Right, so the scholarship resume. And if you want to be true professional, you need to do something outside yourself. You know, people call this going outside the box. And if you know me, I hate when people say that I need to go outside the box. Like, whose box are you talking about? I just need you to do something that challenges you, that allows you to grow. And the best way to grow is to fail at something, learn from it, write about it, and move on to the next endeavor. But those are accomplishments, those are endeavors. So you need to be constantly updating and writing your resume. When you write your resume, this is something else I love about my nerds. You like to write about all these great things you've done. And remember that a lot of, especially if we're talking about a Phi Theta Kappa scholarship, you're going up against other president of the chapter, vice president of leadership, scholarship chair. You know, these titles may seem to be very important, but when you're going up against 5 or 10 or 20 other of the same title, that doesn't give the person reading the application any insight. And so when you're writing your or when you're writing your resume there, you need to not just talk about what you've done, but what impact has it had. You know, I am the president of a chapter that is the 5th largest chapter nationwide. And we have over 800 members, 200 active members. We do 79 projects a year on our campus. You need to give the impact, not just I'm the president. And not just aspiring to what you want to do, but why you aspire to do things. You want to tell, you know, I want to become a nurse. Why? Because I like blood. You know, not the best, but you need to always think about why is it you're trying to achieve this goal. Every once in a while, I'll have a student come to my office and they're like, yeah, I'm going to go become a pharmaceutical. I'm going to go into pharmacy. And I'm like, why? My parents said that makes great money. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like waiting for more. If you're doing something because somebody else wants you to do it, you can't write about it. You really need to start thinking about, why do you want to aspire to do things? How will it help others? What is your, and we learned about this at TLC, what's your TLC? What's your why? You know, you have to have a purpose, and you want to convey that purpose as much as possible when you're writing that resume of yours, right? And of course, capturing things not just qualitatively, but quantitatively. And of course, it always brings up RBG's famous quote of fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you, right? You're not just doing something to do it, you're doing something to have an impact. And so you want to make sure that when you're writing about that, you show the impact as well and the purpose behind it. All right. So what is all this stuff for? A lot of people are like, well, what? I just need you to write me a letter of recommendation. Well, that's great. And I love to write letters of recommendation for my students and for my officers and for people who know me. I've had a former faculty of mine come back and they're looking for a job and they've asked me to write for them. I've had former employees or employers come back and ask me to write letters, because I don't do a letter unless you give me that resume. I need to know what you think about yourself before I can write about you. And the reason for that is, what is the purpose of the letter I'm writing for you, right? And everything you're putting together that I'm asking for before I can write that letter for you is telling me how you want to be remembered. So I do a lot of different things. And if I had to write a resume for my, I'm sorry, a letter of recommendation for myself, what is it I want the impact of that letter to be? And I can't do that unless you give me your packet. I need your packet. I need your stuff. I need to know all about you before I can do my letter. And it's funny, some students will come to me and they're like, hey, I need a letter. And I'm like, okay, what is the letter for? And they can't answer that question. What do you want me to write about? And they can't answer that question. How long do you want it to be? They can't answer that question, which brings me to a few tips. All right. And I'm going to kind of detail these tips. I don't want to go too long, but I'm going to get into these tips one by one, right? You need to pick the right person. You need to have some good time management. You need to provide the recommendation packet. You need to give the writer parameters, and you need to do the submission, make sure it gets submitted. And then of course you always want to show your gratitude, right? So often in life, things that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great or good fortune. This one I truly enjoy. I actually did not get into law school. That was my dream. I was actually going to sit on the court. I was, going to be one of the first Jewish women on the court, but RBG beat me to it. But I didn't do well in my LSAT, and I didn't get to law school when I wanted to. And so I had to do something else. Well, every turn in my life, which seemed to be an impediment and something that was a problem, actually turned out to be great fortune. And it's all on how you look at things, right? Picking the right person is one of those. I've had people who come to me. I've got a great example of Isaac. Isaac came to me. He was a wonderful officer or chair. I loved him. He was a great guy. And he asked me for a letter. And I asked him one question: where are you going? Well, he was going to Texas Tech. And I said, okay, first of all, why are you coming to me when we've got Jumper? Jumper is an alumni from Texas Tech. She knows the culture. She can talk about what it's like to go there. Yes, I can write you a letter, but I'm a UT person, right? It's like, I'm the UT Arlington, UT Dallas people. And so you need to go to Jumper. And so it's always, and I didn't deny him a letter because I didn't want to write one for him. I denied him a letter because I found someone who can do better. And of course, where's Isaac now? Yeah, whatever that, like, who that Jumper is doing right now. He's at Tech. All right, so when you're talking about picking the right person, remember when I said already you need to read what the scholarship or application or university, what are you asking the letter for, right? Knowing the purpose of the recommendation will help you in choosing the correct person. Every once in a while, somebody will say, oh, I heard you write great letters. Can you write something for me? Well, that's wonderful. You're a member of Phi Theta Kappa, and I've never seen you at a meeting. I don't know your name. I know absolutely nothing about you. And I am very honest with people. My letter is not going to be good. And I've had to send that email response a few times. Will you write me a letter? Absolutely. I'm sorry, it will not be a very good letter. Are you sure that I'm the right person for you? Right? Knowing the purpose of the recommendation will help you. If you were in my class and you didn't do well in my class, do you want me to write a letter about that? Right? If you were in my class and you were exceptional, but you have zero leadership skills, and what you're applying for requires information about your leadership skills, am I the one you want to write that letter? And the same thing for when somebody comes to me and asks me. So for advisors, people come to us all the time and ask us, and I don't think it's a problem to let them know that I'm not the right person. And if I can help them find the right person, I'm doing my job. I'm advising properly. Right. So this tip is very important. Why are you applying for the specific award, scholarship, or admission to this university? This is sometimes hard for students. I love this one guy who some of you might know, Oliver. Oliver came to me one year and he said, "Hi, I need a couple of letters of recommendation." I said, "Sure, no problem. Where are you applying?" He goes, "Only 25 schools." I'm sorry, what? 25 what? So again, I absolutely enjoy working with Phi Theta Kappa students, but Phi Theta Kappa students, more isn't always better. Sometimes you got to narrow that down. And unfortunately, I told Oliver, I said, "Yes, I can write you a letter of recommendation. And unfortunately, I can write you one letter that can be copied 25 times. Just know that that's not a good letter of recommendation, because what I didn't have time for in the time frame he gave me were 25 separate letters that would be specific to every one of the university's criteria." Now I said, pick your top five, make sure that those are your top five. And I changed the letter for the top five based on what they were looking for, and to be able to highlight Oliver in the way that he needed for those five. And then we just kind of copy pasted for the other 15. Wait, I can't do math, for the other 20. Right? Because there was no way I could do 25 different letters. He didn't even read all the requirements for all the recommendation letters, which that's a whole other situation. So making sure that you understand what you're applying for, why you're applying for the specific one, and what you need from the letter of recommendation. Criteria is also important. So every once in a while, the criteria will actually be in it. Please give us a letter of recommendation that supports your essay that you've submitted. I've had a number of times when that has happened, and what's interesting about that is then I don't have the essay. They asked me to write a letter of recommendation, but didn't tell me that there was a criteria to it. Now, sometimes, of course, a person who writes a lot of letters of recommendation for Phi Theta Kappa or whatnot knows that there's criteria. And so I've stopped people and said, "Hey, wait, you need to send me that criteria. I don't have it memorized." But sometimes I'm really busy. I do 5 to 10 letters of recommendation a month. And so, and I know that that might seem low to students because they're like, "Oh yeah, that's no big deal." But that's actually quite a lot, because I like to put a lot of heart and writing into it. And I put a lot of effort into my letters. And so for me, I need to know exactly what you want so that I'm not wasting my time. All right. That being said, read the instructions. I can't tell you how many times I've spent a week or two writing a letter for a student based on what they've told me. And then it turns out they have to have that letter from somebody who was their professor. And so they've been in my Phi Theta Kappa organization, but they haven't been a student of mine. And so I spent my time, and look, I do a lot of time wasting. It's not a problem, but you have to remember that you have to be, you have to think about the people who you're asking these letters from, and whether or not they're willing to waste that time. So reading is the key. And I know that RBG was not talking about letters of recommendation or applications, but it's very true. Reading is the key. If you don't know what you're applying for, then how can you possibly get a good letter? And for the advisors, I always say, make sure that if you have a link or you know what it is, just go there yourself. It saves so much of your time. If you can do keywords, know what you're looking for, it's a lot easier. I'll have students who are like, "I need a really long letter of recommendation," or it can only be 1 page or something like that. And then when you go and you actually read the recommendation requirements, it has nothing to do with what the student said. It's just what they think. All right, so time management. Time management, I used to think I was super great at this, but then Professor Linder did a wonderful workshop on time management, and I'm rethinking my entire personal time management, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is you need to know when to start asking for letters. And everybody has their own time frame. And so I have colleagues who are like, "Oh, if they don't come 6 months in advance, I'm not writing a letter." All right. For me, it's more like 4 to 5 weeks. And I know that seems excessive to some people, but when I have 5 to 10 letters that I have to write, and I like to spend a good amount of time on each letter, then I need to make sure that I'm managing my time wisely, along with the 6 classes that I teach and the, stuff I do with Phi Theta Kappa. I mean, we're just slightly active. And then of course the Texas region, Linder's constantly demanding I do stuff. So when you're looking at time management, it's not just your time management of making sure you get everything you need to submit, but it's making sure you ask early enough so that you get everything you need to submit. I know one student, I believe she's on here, Anna. She is extremely good with her time management. She'd asked me for a letter, and it was just funny because I had put it on my calendar, but it wasn't the first one I was going to do. And I could tell she was getting just a tiny bit nervous because she had every single thing. The one piece she was missing was my letter. And so I always tell my students, if you've asked me for a letter, it does not bother me at all that you remind me. Now, you need to make sure that you know who you're talking to. And advisors, you need to make sure that you can handle the reminders. Yes, I do say be respectful when you're asking. Anna did not send me a text going, what the blankety blank. She just was like, hey, just checking in. Are you, do you need anything else from me in order to complete this task? Which was a great reminder for me. I had just put it on my calendar where I needed it, and I told her it'll be fine. Provide the deadlines, right? I can't tell you how many times people have asked me for a letter, and then they're just like, yeah, can you give me a letter? And I'm like, sure, for when? Oh, you know, whenever. If someone tells me whenever, that doesn't even go on the calendar. And in fact, until you give me a date, it's not going anywhere. I'm not putting you at the top of the list, right? And those who know me best know that you give me a fake deadline as well. I don't know about any other advisors, but I actually share my letters with the people I'm writing for. And the reason I do that is I want to make sure, I know that we had just talked about not fibbing anything. Well, I want to make sure I'm not fibbing either. You've given me your resume, I've written based on what you've told me, and now I'm filling in some blanks and writing a letter about you. I send it back making sure that this is what you're looking for. Is this what you need from me? And I'm very open about my letters of recommendation. Not everyone is like that. So make sure that you know what who you're asking a letter from and what they need from you in order to get that letter complete. I will also say that this is a tip that I tell students, and a lot of advisors don't like this tip, but I send all my letters to my students, and it's not for me to decide if they use it. Like I said, I don't mind wasting the time. If I wrote a letter and they don't think that's what they need, and that's not going to get them the scholarship, the whatever it is they're applying for, then I'm okay with them not using it. And so I always tell people, ask for more letters than you need if they're willing to share it, so you can pick the one that makes you look the best. And again, that's not for everybody. Not every advisor, not every professor is willing to do that. And not every place that you're submitting allows you to do that. So now we have a lot more online submissions. So I can say that a lot of times they just send a link and you submit it. So that's not a problem. But, you know, in the olden days, like before COVID, we would have to actually print them out, sign them, lick the envelope, close it up, maybe sign the envelope. So you need to know how the submission is going to happen to see if you can even get a copy of that. And the final thing, this is a little embarrassing. I'm not saying it just for me, but I do appreciate the bundt cakes that I receive every once in a while. But you do want to say a thank you. You want to say thank you because you know that people who are writing you that letter, they're taking up some time, that they could be using it for other things. You want to make sure that if you ever need something in the future, that they'll remember you. Out of the 5 to 10 letters I write every month, I only get, 1% gives me a thank you. And so when those people come back and ask me for another letter and another letter, the answer is absolutely. I have a student now going in for his PhD. I've written a letter for his scholarships, undergrad, master's, and of course for the PhD. He just sends me a nice little card. I'm a big card person. And so that's all I need, just a reminder. And why? It's been years, right? Since the last time he was in my classroom, since the last time he was in Phi Theta Kappa, but I remember him, not just because of what I've written on the letters of recommendation, but because he reminds me by sending me those thank yous and reminds me that my time spent is time well spent. So for a strong recommendation, this is more so for if your faculty or your advisor gives it to you to read, and or for faculty and advisors who are listening. What I have found doing this for a number of years for various different people is the personal touch is actually very essential. I used to work in the business world, and my letters of recommendation were something to the effect of, this person is an employee, I recommend them strongly, they were good at their job. That's not saying anything that they can't. I mean, if I didn't fire them, they were probably good at their job, right? If they got an A, they're probably good at school. If they're 4.0, they're probably smart. That's not what I'm talking about. The personal touch. Why is this person important to me? And in every one of my letters, I try and include something that reminds me of them, my first encounter, or something very specific about that person that I remember them by, kind of like the introduction that Madeline gave with me. And I do apologize, I am very uncouth. So yes, I did say that. Where's my black friend? Anecdotes, they're a team player, leadership, you should probably spell leadership correctly, ethics, and so on. And so you just need to make sure that when you're writing the letter, you're including the key words that are actually in the recommendation requirement as well. This is kind of the same thing with HIA, right? The people who are reading the letters are looking for key terms, and if you can include those throughout the letter, it helps. Recommenders should be timely and someone you share good rapport with. So this kind of goes back to my former student. They're no longer involved in my class and they're no longer involved in Phi Theta Kappa, but they're timely because we haven't had a huge gap. I remember this person. If you were at TLC, you know that I had asked a former faculty of mine to come and speak at TLC. Well, this is someone I'm friends with on Facebook and Instagram, and we kind of communicate a little bit there. But I will tell you that the way I approached her to come and speak at TLC was, I'm not sure if you remember me. And then I reminded her of our relationship. And then I asked her for the favor. And you want to do the same thing. Don't assume, and this is, I'm not talking to anyone specifically, don't assume that the people you're asking a recommendation for remember who you are. I'll have students every once in a while who'll send me an email like, hey, can you write me a recommendation letter? And I just am searching my brain and just based on the name. And I feel really bad. Sometimes I'll respond back. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't recall which class you were in. And to have to send that email back is pretty sad because if I don't immediately remember who you are, that recommendation letter isn't going to be that strong. So I always, when asking for a favor, when asking for a letter, I'm always reminding the person I'm asking of our relationship and the connection as to why I'm asking for it. All right, and if we have good rapport. I can't tell you how many times, and faculty on this Zoom will agree with me, I've had students who have failed my class and they've taken me a second time. I have had students who did not do well in my class. They enjoyed the class immensely, they just didn't turn anything in. And they will ask me for recommendation letters because they enjoyed the class. They're like, that was the best class ever. And I'm thinking, well, where I'm sitting, you failed. And what am I going to write about you? That I was very entertaining, so you took me again? So the rapport needs to be there. You need to make sure that they are favorable. You make sure that the letter that they're going to write for you is going to help you. And now I have a point of contention with the short and to the point. Anybody who's gotten a letter from me, whoa, it's longer than 1 page. I tend to write 2 to 3 page letters of recommendation. I do that because I do a personal touch. I like to give specific examples. I want to make sure that the person reading it understands that I am not just a generic writer. But if anyone reads my letters, they will know the first and second paragraph and the concluding paragraph are, if you take everything out in the middle, it's still a strong recommendation. And so if somebody is skimming, that's normally what we do. If we're skimming, we're reading the first, second, and last paragraph. Those are very, very strong. The center is where I give a little bit more meat, a little bit more information, a little bit more. If you want to know about this person, really know about this person, read this in between stuff. So I am not of the favor of very short and to the point. Of course, it all depends on the criteria, right? I write differently based on who I'm writing for and what it is for. All right, so RBG is great. And so of course we should not be held back from pursuing our full talents, from contributing what we could contribute to the society because we fit into a certain mold, because we belong to a group that historically has been the object of discrimination. And I do love RBG, but what I'll tell you is there's a scholarship out there for every one of you. There's one out there for a redhead. There's one out there for a left-handed person. There's one out there for an LGBTQ person. There's one out there for a Jew, a female Jew, anything you can think of. There is probably a scholarship out there. So I know that we all want to break free from our molds, but sometimes our molds are our pathway to free education. So don't limit yourself with just the big ones everyone talks about. There's something unique about you that somebody else also thinks is unique, and they will give you money for that. And so when you're looking for scholarships, that's just my tiny little tip, go for that. And I will tell you that I like to point those things out when I write. And so when you're giving the person who you need a letter from a little bit about you and what makes you special, even if it might be considered a category, it can help. It really can. Just make sure that the person writing for you knows all about you, because that letter will be that much stronger. So that is the boring PowerPoint, but I would love to answer any questions if I have some time. How do I do on time? You know me, I talk.
Can we have them email?
Absolutely. Any questions you have, you can email me. I will put my email in there right away. And you know what's funny is I have had, because of Phi Theta Kappa, I've had people reach out to me from different districts, from different areas. And, Professor Linder writes way better than me, but I am very happy to help if anybody needs anything. So thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. I think this is the quietest I've ever been.
Hey, we'll enjoy it while we can. Thank you so much, Dr. Hargis. I specifically, I've heard parts of this presentation before. I specifically asked Dr. Hargis because I know that this is something that is near and dear to her heart, and it's something that I need work on. So I'm very, very appreciative. Thank you. So as we get ready for our final presenter, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And I just want you to know, so I've been in Phi Theta Kappa for 6 years. And as I went along, I met some awesome people. There was one person that just was always there, always had this placid, beautiful smile on her face, never seemed rattled, and just was able to rattle off Phi Theta Kappa rubrics, information, structure, without blinking an eye. And I discovered as we were determining the ranking that this was our District 2 coordinator. But she was doing presentations at Catalyst or Nerd Nation. I was begging for information, and she was always just, here you go. What do you need? Just email me. I'll give you this. And that was Professor Mary Linder from Grayson College. Now, Professor Linder is our Texas Region Coordinator. And I am so excited that this beautiful person has been chosen and is leading our region in the highest heights. So as we prepare to finish, we have the special gift of hearing directly from our Texas Region Coordinator.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do always try to be helpful. I know that we sometimes have individuals who maybe don't want to share hallmarks and I've just never been that person. I know my chapter has done well for a few years, and I don't want us to do well because we keep secrets. I want us to do well because we worked for it. And so I will make that blanket thing. If y'all ever need any help with Hallmark tips, you need me to come do a presentation for your chapter. If you want to see some of our entries as examples, I'm happy to share those. Just shoot me an email at txregion@txptk.org. And I will share anything that I have, anything that I know. So I know that we're short on time here, so I'm going to kind of do this fast and furious, but I've selected a few key things that I want to emphasize that I think are important as part of our updates. And so really a lot of this is reminders, but it's easy with everything that we've got coming at us kind of electronically to lose track of some things. So I want to make sure that we stay focused on a few things. So starting with our fall workshop. So we've been doing a fall workshop series all semester. The regional officers selected a lot of important topics they felt that chapters needed, particularly in this time of social distancing. And so they really wanted to put together a curriculum, if you will, to help chapters to remain successful during this time of COVID. And so we have 3 remaining workshops. And so one is next week, right, on Thursday, November 5th. And then we have the 19th and then December 3rd. And so they're always at 4 o'clock. So these are all Thursdays at 4. So please mark your calendars. We would love for you to be there if it can work for your schedules. And there's something special about being there so you can really ask those questions. But if for whatever reason you cannot make that time slot, then we do record these, all the ones we've had so far this fall, as well as our remaining 3. They're recorded and they're put onto our TXPTK YouTube channel. So first of all, if you're not subscribing to the TXPTK YouTube channel, what are you doing? Because I know you're on YouTube. So you need to make sure you subscribe, and then you'll get notifications as soon as they go up. We share them on social media as well, but you'll get that nice little notification if you do subscribe to our channel. And for the fall workshops in particular, I've created a playlist, so you don't have to dig through stuff and try to figure out what's there. I just created a fall 2020 workshops. I try to label things where it makes sense. So you can just go through there and catch up on anything that you may have missed. 5-star chapter plan. I know Jennifer Stanford mentioned this at the beginning of her presentation, and I am going to emphasize the importance of your 5-star chapter plan. If you have not yet set a goal for your chapter, and there are many chapters that have not yet set goals, and it be October 31, then please get in there and update that. And I encourage you to set your goal as 5 stars. As Dr. Harris, my co-advisor, likes to say quite often, why would you even think about setting 3 stars your goal? You don't go into a class as Phi Theta Kappas and say, I'm going to shoot for a C. You don't do that. There's no penalty if you shoot for 5-star and then for whatever reason do not make it. So I really encourage you to set 5 stars your goal and to work towards that. Any advisor or chapter officer, if you've been loaded into the Phi Theta Kappa system by your advisor as a chapter officer, any of you can update the 5-star chapter plan. So it doesn't just have to fall on your chapter president or just on your advisor. Do make sure that you update it. And I will tell you, sometimes advisor, I am not that person, because anyone who's been around me for a while knows that I keep a meticulous planner. And so I actually put it in my planner, like go update the 5-star chapter development plan. But if I didn't do that, it'd be very easy to kind of lose track and forget to make that update. So please go in, set your goal if you've not, 5-star, and then update your progress thus far. And then make sure that you do your final update by the deadline, which is January 22nd, 2021. And that is a hard deadline. If you figure it out on January 23rd that you forgot to update it, it's going to be, well, my bad. So please make sure that you get that updated. And if you want to not cause me to have a heart attack, then please don't wait till January 22nd to update it, because now is about the time that I start tracking that about once a week. When we get into like January 1st, I'll start looking at it once a day, because I am that person and I will be worried about our chapters. I will also say this. I know that some chapters are struggling with honors in action and college projects. And let's say you do your project and maybe it didn't turn out the way you planned. Still write it up. Okay, write up and submit those entries. Write up and submit that honors in action. Write up and submit that college project entry, because you've earned the 5-star if you get those submissions in. If you did the projects, even if they weren't great, write up the best you can, get it submitted so you get that 5-star recognition. I'm not saying to make things up, but I do have sometimes, it actually happens every year, chapters will tell me, I just didn't submit the college project because it wasn't a great project, didn't turn out well, or we didn't get the final edits together. Submit what you have. Like, it may not be an award-winning entry, but if you've done the work to earn the 5-star, get the recognition. It's really, really important. I hope you're working on the various EDGE programs. Of course, what I call the OG of the EDGE programs is Competitive EDGE. It's been around for a while. We know that it recently got revamped, and I tell everybody I'm the #1 fan of the new Competitive EDGE. I love it. I find it just so beneficial, such great programming. And remember, if you complete Competitive EDGE, then in Texas, we will pay for your pins, right? So don't buy your pin when you finish. We will pay for your pin for you. And so if you've not yet done Competitive EDGE, or maybe you did the old one and haven't done the new one yet, I'll give you another pin. It's okay. Go ahead and complete it. And we'll have the date out very soon of the date you need to complete by for TRC, but we'll recognize you at the Texas Regional Convention and we'll mail your pins to you. So please, please complete that. But all of the EDGE programs are beneficial. Transfer EDGE, to teach you about the transfer process, that can be a really confusing process, particularly if you may not have somebody close to you who has gone through it themselves and can coach you through that. And so I really encourage you to do that. If you're planning to transfer Employment EDGE, I'm assuming everybody wants to get a job. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. So Employment EDGE is going to teach you really important tips. And now that I found out that the infographic resume thing is in there, holy cow, that was an amazing webinar that Dr. Lynn and Dr. Blake did. And so I'm probably going to go watch it again because I really, really love that. But there's some wonderful information in Employment EDGE. And then Research EDGE, I know that we often frame it as, you know, this is going to be helpful for Honors in Action, and it is. But the tips that you are learning in Research EDGE are just really good tips for your own academic writing. So it's going to help you in your classes and as you continue through your academic career. And I will tell you, a lot of careers, you're going to have to do some form of writing, reports or something like that. This is going to help you with all of that. So really, really do the EDGE programs. They're going to benefit you. And again, if you're not following us on social media, I don't know what you're doing. We put a lot of information. Most of our notifications go out first on social media. Emails and stuff come later because, quite frankly, people don't read them. When I send out constant contact stuff, I get to see how many people are opening my emails. Okay, so, and I can actually see specifically who, so I know who's reading them and who isn't, and I will tell you most people aren't reading them. And so we put a lot of information out on social media. I've had 3 people this week say, oh, I didn't know you were on Instagram. We are, okay, so Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is where we post all of our updates. So please make sure that you are following us to get those updates so you can remain informed of the cool things that are going on in the Texas region. And then I'm going to wrap up here with running for regional office. I want to see so many chapters running for regional office that I don't know what to do with myself. I want to have the problem of, holy crap, how are we going to fit all these skits in? Okay, that's the problem I want to have. Those are the problems I like to solve. So if you have run for office before, great, want to see you run again. If you've never run for office before, great, want to see you run now. I want to see everybody consider, and hopefully a large number of Texas chapters run. I've just given you a few dates here on the slide, and I did send this to Professor Bowman so she can include it when she sends out everything. This information will be up on txptk.org very soon, but we're finalizing a few things in our campaign rules packet. So it's not there yet, but I anticipate in the next week or so that we'll have it up. But one of the things, if you're running for regional office, you do have to attend one of the mandatory rules meetings. So not all 4 of them, but one member and one advisor has to attend one of the 4 mandatory rules meetings. And one question I get quite often, does it have to be that the member and advisor attend the same one? No, but I do track who is attending each one of those, and it has to be one member, one advisor attends one of these 4. And so there are different dates and times here, but you do have to attend one of those to run for office. And then the application deadline to run for regional office will be February 12th. And I do an end of day. I know headquarters does a lot of 5 p.m. Deadlines. I'm not that person. I do end of day because it just makes more sense to me. And I think in teacher mode, a lot of times people are like, no, you said February 12th. So right, it's still February 12th. So I give you to the end of day on that. But as you know, the information continues to come out about running for regional office, and we did do a webinar on that. And so you'll be able to go to YouTube and get the recording on that. But as more information comes out, as questions emerge, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I want to encourage and help every chapter to run that is interested in doing so. And with that, I am done.
That was amazing. And so this is the deal. I think that everybody should consider at your next general meeting making sure that you show that PowerPoint. That's just a suggestion. Thank you so much, Professor Linder. Guys, you are done. You have, I hope, received a fount of information. I hope that you took great notes. If you didn't sign in on the sheet, make sure you do that. I put the link in the chat one more time because I want to make sure that I get you these emails, get you the email with the PowerPoints. I am not as organized as Professor Linder, so you're going to need to put your information in the document, because if you put it in the chat, put your information in the document, and then I will send everyone these PowerPoints. Thank you so much to District 1 and District 5 and all of our speakers. This has been tremendous, and I hope that that you got as much good information as I did. Oh, the winner of the costume contest, Garrett.
Now, did I say contest? I talked about it, but I don't know if I put it. Did I put it on social media? Did I put it in the newsletter?
There was something on social media. I got dressed up. I was very quiet and subdued for 3 hours. I'm just pointing it out. But you know, the hair's about to come out. I have to go SNL version in a little bit. So don't make me do a rap. Yeah, the SNL version is a lot worse than the regular one. So I see the potato has left the building. Thank you, because that was pretty disgusting. You know how I hate my potatoes.
That's rough. That ain't right.
Potatoes are nasty.
So while Garrett is scrambling and trying to figure out how he's going to name a winner, since he did put that on social media, then I'm gonna say let's give mad props to our district coordinators for putting this together, and our district vice presidents as well for all of their hard work. So really, really great event. We appreciate you bringing us together. I think the information is wonderful and so great. Like, I learned things from Susan and from Jennifer, as I always do. So it was really wonderful information. But I think the opportunity to connect is even more important. And so I really appreciate us being able to be together this way, because otherwise I don't get to see people. Except my crazy neighbors, and nobody wants to see them. So I'm just saying real talk here. Garrett, I'm running out of things. I need you to pick a winner.
Oh, no, okay. So look, here's how we're gonna do this. Everyone's going to, in the chat, send me privately who they think should win, and I will count them up. I will put myself through that difficulty of counting names.
Just so you don't have to be the one to pick.
Yeah, because look, I would say Hargis, but I'm also biased, and everyone would yell at me for that.
I mean, you get yelled at no matter what, so it's okay.
That's right.
Like, I even took out a couple of my earrings. Like, I'm just saying that I went full, and I didn't put any makeup on.
Okay, that just doesn't happen. You don't take your earrings out. I mean, come on. It's true, man.
Just remember, Bonnie was a potato because she knows I hate them.
That would be all the more reason to vote for her.
I'm just making sure people remember.
Yes. Yes.
I did that just for you.
I just appreciate that you remember my likes and dislikes.
I'm still in shock that you don't like potatoes. I'll never forget it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Potatoes are just so annoying. Like, what is the
So what kind of potatoes? Like baked potatoes, fries, what?
Keep going.
Liquid form.
The mashed are disgusting.
Who eats liquefied potatoes? I would like to know. Potato soup?
I would imagine most people here probably consumes liquid potato at some point.
Like potato soup.
The fact that she doesn't know is the best part about this entire thing right here.
No, never mind.
You need gravy, Argus. You need gravy.
Liquid potato.
Like, what do you?
There's
literally
something
murder.
wrong with all of you people. We're not even from Idaho, and you people are like touting the
Way
potato.
to go, Idaho.
I feel
No
like
first
potatoes
brand.
is what you get when you have your like tonsils removed.
Huh?
Didn't need that. Nope.
Through a straw or something.
Jello.
Probably
I don't
so.
have that.
That's
Who's S? Who is S that's complaining about me? Girl,
I don't know, but I
who's
like
S? I need a face. I need a name. I need to know who that
like
is.
it. I like
I have no idea who I am. Sorry.
You know who it is.
She is an anonymous Hargis critic.
I was gonna say, if it's
Commonly
a
known as
problem
F.
child, they're from on the inside.
More than likely.
Like,
It's not my
excuse
people.
you.
I don't even
Wait,
see
hold
Deeksha.
up.
Did she go back to sleep? Did Deeksha leave early to go back to sleep? Oh, oh no. No, she didn't. She missed my presentation? Oh no.
Uh-oh.
When she asked for a letter of
Class
recommendation,
years
you know what I'm
asleep.
gonna say. It's gonna be
Get
no.
her.
No. Mm-mm.
Get her.
She
So
takes
you-
her costume seriously.
RBG is gonna murder you.
I'm all about the potato. I'm just saying.
Dude, I really do have to acknowledge that you do look like her, and it's a little scary.
You do. It's true.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah, like that.
Wait, also, before I announce the winner, I have to ask, Hargis, is that like an actual like piece of clothing, or is that like one of those like tablecloth like center things that
doily.
you cut a hole in?
doily.
This is actually my robe. Thank you very much. I have a robe. I appreciate that. It's my hello. She's the first Jewish woman on the court. You really don't think I've got the earrings. I've got the correct glasses. I will be posting later on Facebook my portrait.
Is that your graduation robe for your
That's
master's?
amazing.
No, masters would have had a big whatchamacallit.
Oh, that's true.
It does. It does.
He does have the big thingamajig. Is that from undergrad? I'm very impressed.
Why are you impressed? Because I keep on to old shit.
Hey, I still
Are we
have
still
mine,
recording?
and
Just
I'll
pick
wear it at
somebody. My
graduation.
kids need help.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
hear somebody yelling for help. Let's go.
okay. So
That was me.
based on the results, for every one person who got voted, Hargis got 4 different votes. So by a large majority, the notorious
They just couldn't believe I was
RBG
quiet that long.
Right?
She took the
true.
No,
character
you weren't
seriously.
understand it, but
Yeah, you went full method there.
Hello, presentation with the quotes.